Hey, I'm Alex Southey, and I'm coming to you from a new location. Does it sound worse? Yes, it does. I'm sorry. I am now in the Junction area of downtown Toronto. The sound will get better because I think now that I'm down actually in Toronto, I will try and have in person interviews. I already have one decent microphone from playing music. Maybe I'll try and get another one. Maybe I'll try and have somebody bring one. I don't really know what I'll do, but hopefully it will sound better. Uh, Additionally, just getting into an apology for the band, Sale Cassidy. Uh, it took forever to plan this out, and it's because one, I'm flaky, and two, moving makes people inaccessible. So it's one part my fault, one part just the nature of moving. But this was a fantastic conversation. I say that about every week, but you know, the batting average is high. The conversations have been good. We chat about maybe this deserves a trigger warning, just like the Julie title episode. We talk about suicide. We talk about intense drug addiction and just in general mental health and struggles and that kind of thing. So if that's something you need to skip, um, go ahead and do it. That's fair enough. But I really hope you enjoy it. Sale Cassidy are a great rock band from Victoria. I'm Alex Southey, and you are listening to Your Worst Song. Yeah, okay. Well, where I'm located is actually, I just moved. I was telling this to your agent or manager or however you refer to them,
Yep.
and you that I just moved to Junction area. Have you been in the Junction much?
No, where exactly is that? I'm sorry if I sound unknowing.
No, no, it's okay. I barely spent any time here before I got here 2 days ago. The Junction is like if you imagine the just what generally downtown Toronto looks like,
Oh,
it's northwest.
oh, cool. Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
it's sort of like straight above Liberty Village and Parkdale, that and
Okay.
Roncy and that area. Yeah. But it's nice. It's I thought it would be a little bit far or removed or something and not feel as
Right.
much like the city, but I'm really enjoying it. But it's probably because I'm right next to a really good coffee shop.
Hell yeah. And your staircase looks absolutely beautiful behind you, by the way.
Thank
Like
you.
one of those
I'm in a
traditional.
basement suite, so that actually leads to nowhere. It's just represents hope. I can never go up there. Uh, and
Well,
you know, I'll make the visual point about you as well. You're sitting in a tractor, you told me. So tell me about that.
yeah, so Victoria, where I'm from, our snowy season actually starts normally in February.
Mm.
And so we've had such a mild winter, and then whenever we get a dusting, and I say dusting of snow, everyone freaks out. So where I work, I'm the operator, and so I deal with anything to do with tractor and operating work. And everyone at the school that I work at was like, "Hey man, can you clear some snow with the tractor?" And I was like, "What the hell? Why not, right?"
That's kind of awesome. That's
Yeah.
like kind of that's the kind of thing that seems awesome when you're a kid and remains awesome when you're older. You're like, I get to drive a tractor into some snow, you know? Also,
Exactly.
it's great to hear that you're from Victoria. That's actually my family is based in BC. That's where I grew up. It was Vancouver, not Victoria, but my nana has lived her entire life in Victoria and
Nice.
still living there now. And I love it. I was just out there last year, and she lives right on the bay where you see the seaplanes take off and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And it's
Yeah.
awesome. It's awesome. How is it? What is it like? Tell me about it. You're based there. I
Yeah.
assume you've been based there for a while, so tell me about what the music scene is like. The only other person I spoke to thus far based in Victoria is Art Deco.
Oh,
Have you
cool.
met them? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know who they are, for sure. The music scene in Victoria is thriving. We have so many different groups. We have so many huge acts. Like you have some big names, like Jesse Roper's a big name from
Yeah.
here. We have like Aiden Knight. I think he's from here. But we've got a lot of really cool big artists. But then our music scene is just full of incredible underground artists. Some of my favorites are just climbing up through, like, we have a venue shortage, so it's really tough to get a show and a gig out here.
That's what Art Deco said,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
And so we basically have like you'll see. I don't know if are you familiar with Side Door?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Dan Mangan project.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've relied a lot on that because like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of side door gigs will do. I've done like probably 10 and
Uh-huh.
they're awesome. You can live stream them. So a lot of homes are being opened up, like big houses, like old Victorian character home basements are being opened.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, turn into venues.
I want to
And
hear more about both of those things
yeah,
because Side Door is such a sort of valiant thing that Dan Mangan and the rest of them wanted to create. Uh, and I just started kind of using it myself. I'm also a musician, and
cool.
I, but by using, I just mean I've set up my profile. I
Yeah,
literally haven't done a single thing. So
yeah.
I think um, treat the listeners and I like we've never done it before. What was
Sure.
it like when you got involved?
Incredible. So what I really loved about it is it's also a networking tool. So
Right.
you can register yourself on there and you can actually basically make yourself kind of available, kind of like a musician's Tinder.
Okay.
And then basically you're out and you're available and then local hosts.
Hmm.
So you'll have people, there's two types of people that register at this point. My experience has been like this. You got your hosts that register, so the people that have a home or a venue, and
Hmm.
then you'll have your artists. And so you can put a call out or you can sort of make yourself available and then hosts will find you. So they'll look up local side door acts and we can look up hosts and then you can directly contact them and ask them, hey, love to jump on a gig, love to organize something with you. And also for touring artists, it's another way because a lot of the time people on tour have a hard time booking venues.
Hmm.
Especially if you don't have a touring agent who has the monopoly on all the venues, right? So Side Door is a great resource because a lot of the time you can do like a house show tour, but not just for like a singer songwriter. Like full bands can even do a house show if the house, like if you describe, hey, we're a full band, there's a lot of people that throw them in their basement and even in their living room.
Well, that's so interesting. Thank you for that explanation.
Yeah,
I think that makes a lot of sense, and you kind of identified why it's so valuable. It sort of takes the networking out of the hands of middlemen and instead just puts the two together.
no,
But also, what I want to hear kind of is, have you found that, because clearly it works well in Victoria or let's say BC, have you
yep.
found that it works as well across Canada, or is it like patchy?
It's so I haven't experienced it from like beyond Alberta.
Mm, okay,
Uh,
okay.
so Alberta was great. You can do side doors there and little house shows, which I've done.
Hmm.
But anything beyond, I haven't heard. But I have heard good feedback from other artists that have literally done house show tours, and it was cool because you can literally connect with hosts and even like have them on your repertoire. So they'll just contact you and say, when are you on tour next or whatever. And so you'll have them in your Rolodex.
Oh,
That's a
wow.
code word. So,
So
but
it's
it's
like
cool.
you get as much as you give to it,
Yeah,
sort of like as you build it up, you'll definitely get more from it. Okay.
totally. And I encourage any Canadian musician that's here, take advantage of Side Door. I mean, what Dan's done is an incredible, it's an incredible thing.
And it's
And
free, right? Just to
it's
reiterate, it's free. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And also, another cool aspect of it is you can sell your tickets through it, and it does all the figuring out, all of the revenue stuff, everything else. And then on top of that, you can live stream it, and it has a really good live streaming platform. So, and you can sell tickets to people with a link if you want, who are really into your music. And believe it or not, when I do a live stream, I get a lot of ticket sales by people that just get popcorn at home and watch me play live.
Wow. And I guess theoretically you could also do it where it's like, okay, if you want to come in person, oh,
Yeah,
you're going to pay 15 or 20, but if you just want to stream online, maybe it's just $5 or there's some
that's it.
competitive change. You could do something like that. Wow. But that leads me to my second question, which is perfect. Thank you.
Yeah,
Which is related to the first. And you said that yes, there's a venue shortage, but now a lot of people are opening up or changing their own basements and stuff like that. Just tell me more about that. Like
sure.
even if I think about, and this isn't because I'm in Toronto and I have a Toronto centric mind, but
Right.
Toronto's a fairly big city, even just the downtown. Victoria
Totally.
is a smaller one.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, uh, is it small enough that there's like a hub section of downtown Victoria where you're like, that's where you want to go?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think sort of. I mean, you're right about Victoria being a small city.
Hmm.
So geographically, it's not super huge, and it's spread out into these groups called municipalities. And so, like,
There's like
you know,
Saanich and stuff like
yes,
that, right? Yeah, yeah,
called it, nailed it.
yeah.
So each municipality and area around Victoria, Greater Victoria, will have their little areas.
Hmm.
A really popular zone for artists to play right now is an area in Victoria called Fernwood, and it's kind of really close to downtown, but it sort of borders getting toward, like, the outer region. But
Sure.
there's like a hall, there's the Belfry Theater, there's different like areas kind of stuck together in a little grouping. So there's that, the Fernwood area. Downtown has kind of been taken over by more of a nightclubby life. There's a venue there called Lucky Bar that still is great, has
I've
a
heard
great.
about that.
Yeah, and then the Capitol Ballroom is another great one, but
Okay.
it's kind of difficult to get a gig at the Capitol Ballroom,
Mm.
and if you're like coming up. And at Lucky Bar, it's pretty okay to get a gig there, but I'm noticing more and more people that actually go to see shows are starting to gravitate toward like the Fernwood one called Little Fernwood and a few others, and less so to rate downtown core.
Right. I think that's
Yeah,
happening in a bunch of cities just because the downtown has been,
yeah,
sucked dry from different
it
things,
is.
real estate and corporations and whatever.
Real
It's
estate,
yeah.
yeah, all that. So true.
Um, Tell me about Little Fernwood. Tell me about that venue specifically. Like, what's the pop? Have you played in Toronto before?
I've never played in Toronto. It's there's an artist that I also really love from the Vancouver Island area named Sarah Osborne,
Uh-huh.
and she just moved to Toronto. I'm almost certain she's still there, and she's been posting a lot about her experiences playing in Toronto,
Hmm.
and it's looking super rad. But I've never personally played it.
Okay, the only reason I was asking is if maybe you could make a comparison to but
Comparison, yeah,
anyway, whatever. Just even yeah, how many people do you think that that would hold? What's the vibe? Is it like a bar that has music with a stage, or is it one level up from that where it's like a small
right.
venue or
Well,
higher?
so Little Fernwood is an example of kind of what's been going on lately, with a lot of our venues being shut down and then sold. What happened in Victoria, I think, I'm not fully sure, but it sounds like there was a lot of rules that got changed, and there was a lot of rezoning, and a
Mm,
lot of spots that we relied on to play gigs at just immediately were like, yeah, in 1 month, the doors are closing. So Little Fernwood is kind of located in the heart of Fernwood, and it's located right beside where all like the Fernwood community get together and meet.
hmm.
And it's sort of just an open hall that you need to bring your own sound system. You need to get a liquor license and get someone to work on selling the booze for you as well, which can be like, I like that sometimes because you could, have a hand in selling your own booze
For
at a
sure.
show.
But it is more to do. It's a project, it sounds
More to
like.
do, and you're
Yeah.
seeing more things like that, and so it's kind of turning a lot of bands into entrepreneurs.
Yeah, just like
um
social media has in a way.
exactly,
Yeah.
so that's there, but then there is a theater across the street. It's not super great for touring artists, but you can play there, called the Belfry. But you pretty much break even there, just the
Mm,
cost to run it, plus it's you also have to look at, if is it a union run spot,
y-
because the union, everything has to be paid differently, and it's very different.
right.
So for the most part in Victoria, the city council has been working tirelessly. Matt Dell, in particular, has been working to open up new venues, find funding, work hard for artists, and basically keep, anything that could be a venue. He's just
Hmm.
out there, you know, trying to get funding and us together to make new venues. And there has been some progress there.
Well, thank you for telling
Yeah.
me about that, the forecast. But
Yeah.
I want to that opens up kind of an interesting thing to me, which is are you at least locally involved in politics, or do you just care enough that you are aware of who's helping and who's hurting, or I'm surprised I haven't really had any other. It's not that the musicians I've had on aren't into politics or not
Right.
don't know about it, but they just didn't speak about it. Here you kind of inserted that. So I'm curious what the deal is.
So Victoria in particular is undergoing like massive transformation. Like you're seeing condos being thrown in like within like it
Okay.
feels like they're just there, you know?
Yeah.
And we're just seeing what used to be Victoria turning into a very new version of Victoria. It looks a lot like Vancouver. It's starting to look more like Vancouver. And you're just seeing development. So construction is everywhere. Good luck getting anywhere on time.
Oh
So the
God.
point I'm making is you're seeing a lot of development and a lot of investment. Unfortunately, the arts is kind of being pushed to the side, and you're seeing a lot of artists having to look elsewhere to just to perform
Hmm.
and do anything. And so where the political angle comes in is you're starting to see city council workers reaching out to us saying, "Listen, this is what's happening in your city, and you can help make a change by signing this, sign this or meet here, come to these meetings, get involved this way." And what that's really started to do is activate local artists to be involved with politics
Uh,
and on that level, just out of more necessity rather than anything. Because if we don't, we will see development take over to the point where arts are kind of like, yeah, we'll put you somewhere, you know?
it's always the first to go.
It is
Always.
always,
It's wild considering it's I'm not going to pretend that it's more important than other
of
social
course,
benefits for other things, but
totally,
it is undervalued, I think, generally,
totally.
or whatever. That's a different conversation, but that's very interesting and very that's a really good snapshot that you're describing of what being a musician is, even in just North America or in the music industry, is that you have to
Yeah,
wear so many hats, you have to pay attention to so many things,
yeah.
uh, and there are good things and bad things about it. But what it definitely is tiring.
It's
Uh, but
yeah.
I want to hear this is a good way to get into you specifically. I want to hear more
Cool.
about you, like so were you born in Victoria or have you just spent most of your life there? By the way, sorry, super quickly, your picture's frozen.
I know, I noticed that. But
It
I can
doesn't actually matter. This is all audio, but I just wanted to
okay.
let you know,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
But can you still hear me okay?
Your audio has been
Good.
the exact same throughout, so I don't get
Great.
it, but whatever.
Yeah, I noticed I'm like, oh, I look confused in that. And I'm like, I don't feel confused, but I'm all right.
Exactly. You're really
Yeah,
holding that gaze.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. But yeah.
But yeah, I'm from Victoria. I was born and raised here, and I've only lived abroad 3 years of my life, 2 years in Wuhan, China, and then 1 year I lived in Vancouver as like a young child. So
Wuhan, excuse me,
yeah,
detour time. You
yeah,
lived in Wuhan, now world famous, I must say. Wuhan,
yeah.
China. When did you go?
I was there twice within like a 2 year period or 3 year period. I first moved there to teach English, and I realized there was a budding music scene there. So I convinced my wife at the time. Well, she and I both. She had a good. She was a teacher, so she had a
Uh-huh.
good gig over there, and I was teaching at like a small school. And I wrote a record the first year that I was there by myself and played around Wuhan in like some of the bars, and people thought it was pretty funny to see a. So there was literally hardly anyone from any other country there. It was just me, and that was it. So people were really interested. And then I came back with. I was in a band called Man Made Lake, which was my old band,
Hmm.
and I brought two of the members with me, and we rebuilt the band there. And we toured. We got signed by a record label called Wuhan Prison, and we toured around Wuhan, outside of Hubei province, and yeah, just played a ton of gigs. Um, and then we opened up for any of the outer bands that were coming. Like we got to open up for the Great Lake Swimmers when they came through. We opened up for the Thermals, Sub Pop's the Thermals.
Wow.
All these really amazing bands. Handsome Furs were coming through, but right at the last minute, they weren't able to make the flight for Wuhan, so we missed them. I was super disappointed.
Mm,
But anyways, yeah. So we got to do that, and then played with a ton of cool bands. And there's an incredible metal and punk rock scene
mm.
in Wuhan. So whoooole, who is the lead singer and record head of a label called Wuhan Prison,
Hmm.
kind of signed us. He's now living abroad in the UK because he's really kind of not super. The government's not super happy with him.
Okay.
Um, and so, but at the time when I was there, it was a pretty cool time to be a part of that music scene. It was unbelievable.
That's
So
nuts. You should write a
yeah,
book or something about
it
that.
I could honestly,
Yeah.
I could. Like, I'm not kidding you. It was quite an experience in Wuhan. I've never seen anything like it.
What is touring like around Wuhan and the surrounding areas?
It's so massive. Like, the city that I lived in had 10 million people, and it's like spread into these different districts. So you had Hongkou, Wuchang, and I can't remember the other one.
And
But
this is
anyway,
all what people would generally call Wuhan?
yeah,
Okay, I
and
see.
in the Hubei province, and it's on the Yangtze River, so the big
Hmm.
river cuts right through it. And so you can go by certain aspects will be on a boat, like a little ferry, then you'll be on a train. There'll be a guy sitting beside you with like a basket of chickens, and then there'll be somebody else sitting beside you on on a phone dressed in a suit. Like, all the levels of class were exposed. Like, we
Wow.
also sadly had a lot of really hard things to look at. People that were not supported,
Ah,
sort of laying out in the street, not looking super good. And
wow.
so, like, it was a lot of combination of all the worlds. And
Right.
people were really fascinated when they saw a big group of foreigners walking through with instruments, you
Hmm.
know, on a train or in the venues, which sometimes would be a giant mall that you and there's actually footage of us playing in a massive mall in front of. We were told by one guy that there was probably about 2,500 people there watching us all through the tiers, and it was pretty cool. But
Wow.
touring there was interesting just because it was like you felt like a rock star, but not for being a rock star in the sense that they know your songs and they're stoked and they're like singing your music with you. But
More like you're a Western oddity.
yeah, exactly.
Right. Wow. So what were the interactions like? Like obviously I understand like how much English was spoken. I have no idea what to assume. I assume very little.
Yeah, no, there was barely. So when I lived there in the late early 2000s, so like 2008 and then
Okay.
2010,
Okay.
around that time is when right when the indie rock boom was coming, kind of in that
Yep.
midpoint. So the indie artists like Yola Tango, they were trying to
Yep.
get them to come and all that kind of stuff, right? So English was pretty much non-existent in Wuhan. It
Mhm.
wasn't a touristy destination. It wasn't Beijing. It wasn't Shanghai.
Exactly. Exactly.
It wasn't any of those places. So English was non-existent. In fact, my drummer Lao Song, he was the only member of our band that was local, and he spoke no English. So yeah, so
So
and
is it
he
just a lot of gesturing and miming and stuff? I'm not even kidding.
no,
Like, is
no,
that,
seriously.
yeah.
So I had a very like decent level, like for a Canadian level of Chinese that I could Mandarin, I could speak. So I could
Okay.
communicate with him. And by the end of the second year, we were all just speaking Chinese to even to each other, just out of joy. Like, it's fun to speak.
Wow.
So yeah,
So
and
what level would you, if you could put it in English terms, would you say like, I probably speak at like an 8-year-old's
right.
level in China or something like that?
I would say by the time I left the second year, I was probably about the level of a 8 to 10 year old.
That is very impressive.
No, but I couldn't read it or write it.
Right, right. It's all just
Just
hearing it and speaking it back.
yep. I could ask you
Wow.
about your family, your clothes,
Hmm.
food, weather, what you're doing tomorrow, what you want to
But
do now.
signs are just still like nothing to you.
Yeah, I
Okay,
understood
wow.
you, but that was kind of it. But me and
Wow.
Song also would just communicate through music. Like, he would play
Right.
the drums. His so this is kind of funny, but his family home was our band space.
Well,
And
that's awesome.
their family living room was literally where we would practice. And you would have all the people that were local to the area standing at all the windows because all like there was no insulation. They're all just brick buildings.
Yeah.
So we'd all be playing, and then we'd have the whole community watching us through windows, and sometimes even get to come inside the house and watch us.
Oh my God.
And you'd have to watch your wallets because there's a couple kids in there that had taken our wallets a few times, and
Gotcha.
so we ended up having to like walk around the area looking for the kids and say, "Listen, we'll buy you some candy, but give us back our wallets, please."
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, there's this one kid named Falcon. I named him Falcon,
Yeah.
and he was a little petty thief, and I loved him. He was so awesome, but boy, was he ever sneaky. You'd end up like your watch or your wallet or something would be missing, and he'd have this look on his face, and I'm like, "Man, you're good."
So was it
Mr.
like that sounds like almost a playfully adversarial, like you guys were
Yeah,
both in on the joke
yeah,
almost.
we
Okay.
were, we were.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and he was related to our drummer, like a
Ah,
cousin
okay,
or
okay.
something. So he knew and found him, and yeah. But it was
That's
definitely a wild experience, to say the least.
so okay. So when do you again, we could spend like an entire episode on that, but I don't want to be
Totally,
too I could be taken the whole way, so let's not. But
totally.
that's great. So what takes you back? What does your career look like from that point on?
So I came back to Victoria, and I was pretty underwhelmed with just how it felt
What
here.
age are you at that point, if I may ask?
No, that's okay. I'm in my late 20s
Okay.
and I'm full of piss and vinegar to
Yeah.
be a musician and tour and everything else. And funding wasn't super great into grants. We had them, but they were nearly impossible to get.
Hmm.
And if you wanted to do anything, you either had to know the right person or have lots of money. And I didn't have either because I was spent 2 years, in China and
Yeah.
just focusing on that. So
You're like, I know Falcon.
yeah, I know Falcon who stole my wallet and
Yeah.
Huawei from SMZP in Wuhan. Don't you know him? So there was a lot of that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, yeah, it was underwhelming. Victoria, I love this place. It's my home and I've played here for years, but it has a bit of a reputation for not the greatest crowds.
Oh,
Um,
just
it can be,
unenthusiastic or they don't
yeah,
come out or what?
oh yeah. I've been
Oh.
to so many shows where touring bands have literally stopped halfway through a song and been like, "Why are we here?" Yeah, I'm not even kidding you. I've seen it probably 3 times.
And is the crowd big that they're speaking to? Like
No,
relative, what is the crowd size?
like half full, and it could be like I played with a band from Vancouver and they are absolutely slaying it out there. I brought them to Victoria to Lucky Bar. They're called the History of Gunpowder, and they're
Oh.
just an insanely great band from Vancouver. And when we put on a show together at Lucky, and I mean it was pretty decently well attended, but it was still very surprising for such a great band. And I was opening, like I loved this band and I wanted to just show them to the
Hmm.
Victoria crowd because I've been bragging about them for so long.
Yeah, you wanted to be a good host.
Totally. And I
Hmm.
was not embarrassed, but I was kind of disappointed
No,
at
I
the
get it.
way my community acted, because like you see their like shows when they're in Vancouver all the way to Montreal, and they're absolutely just destroying. They're so cool. So kind of
So what is that? Why?
I just think Victoria, not to talk bad, because it's got amazing bands. By the way, some of the greatest bands I've heard just don't get heard.
Yeah. Oh
That's
God, of course. Yeah.
unfortunate, right? Um, there's a bit of a monopoly here of the scene. If you're not part of the it crowd, music doesn't really matter. Like you could be the greatest band in the world, but if you're not part of the it crowd, you just won't you'll need to go elsewhere. That's just
Yeah.
how it is. And that it crowd almost determines what's cool, even the band that comes through. So, like, even if it's like, unless of course it's a major band that we all know, that we all love, that'll sell out and be a big deal. But like, if you're kind of on the ups, but you're only sort of known by, people that are more tuned to music,
Hmm.
it can be tough in Victoria.
Wow.
It's kind of, I would equate it to like how comics describe what it would be like to come up through Boston. You
Wow.
know, it's like brutal. Like you have to deal with like tougher crowds. And I think Victoria, it's not that Victoria heckles, like they're not like that, but they're just underwhelming. A lot of arms crossed, a lot of standing there watching, and it can be like that. Don't get me wrong though, we got some great artists and
Sure.
we have some good audiences too. It's not everybody. I don't want to lump everyone
No,
into
no, of
it.
course.
but it is kind of known, and I've heard it from a lot of bands that aren't from here, that sometimes they just won't stop in Victoria. They'd rather go to
Wow.
Nanaimo, believe it or not.
Well, that's also beautiful. Not that Victoria is not beautiful, but
No,
Nanaimo is very beautiful. But
totally.
wow, wow.
Totally.
That's
Yeah,
interesting to know. I mean, I wonder if that's just the way it is with scenes. Like, that's
sometimes.
kind of what it is to
Yep.
have a scene sometimes. Because I could say it's the same in Toronto. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's exactly the same in Toronto.
But
But
I will
anyway,
add
yeah.
one quick thing, if it's okay, is I
Yes.
gotta hand it back to this fella named Matt Dell. He used to play in a local band that was amazing called Croatia.
Hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that was his band. But he has single-handedly, and amongst others, been working really hard to bring good audiences back, good venues back, and great opportunities for artists here. So I don't think this is a wash. I don't think Victoria is something to give up on. And I think that the more bands that give Victoria a chance, the better, because it will hopefully change that attitude. And I think we have a really good chance to be an entirely new destination for touring bands.
Wow.
Hmm.
You should be an ambassador for Victoria tourism or something. Uh,
Yeah,
okay, well, let's get into the main questions that'll
sure.
help maybe tell us more about you and the band. So the first one that I usually ask is, what is your favorite gig memory?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, well, I'll say one that's from Victoria because I was
Sh-
going to say one from China, but I'll give you a Victoria one because I
Sure.
think it's great. We've played this really popular festival,
Sorry,
Richlandia.
just to double check too. I know you said earlier you played in a different band, or just to double check, are we talking
Oh
about
yeah,
Sale Cassidy now?
oh yeah, sorry.
That is what I was asking about. So yeah, okay, great.
Now, so my favorite Sale Cassidy one is what you're wanting to know.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, yeah, no, that is a hugely okay.
That's
I
a
would
different one.
Yeah, no, my favorite Sale Cassidy show actually was very recent.
Oh.
We ended up playing this really awesome festival in Comox area on the island called the Philberg Festival. And we had, God, a huge crowd. And some of us knew us, some of them, a lot of them didn't know who we were. The sound was incredible. The stage, everything was just perfect. There's just some shows where everything just happens perfectly and all of a sudden the entire crowd just a lot of the crowd just got up and started dancing, moving, relating to what we were doing. And I looked behind me and the organizers were all up watching us from the back. And it was just, nothing happened that I will say that people will go holy shit. But what it was that I've never had a gig in all my years have everything line up so well.
Hmm.
Like it just I had so much fun. I was high after I got off stage. I was just living it. I loved it. And everybody there did such a great job and I was so happy. And it just filled us with a lot of hope that what we're doing is the right thing. And it was really beautiful.
And you said that was fairly recent.
Fairly recent, last summer.
Wow. And
Yeah.
so then let's put some context to that. Like,
Sure.
tell me about Sale Cassidy in terms of jumping from where we were into Sale Cassidy. Like, when does that start for you? Like, when does it become the priority and
Yeah.
maybe lead us up to now?
Man-Made Lake was a band that before Sale Cassidy that I was also the singer-songwriter mostly. Some of the songs were written by some of the band members, but it was
Hmm.
mostly a project that was written by myself. And so it was my love, it was my everything. But for some reason, the songs that I wrote at the time weren't representing me anymore. And
Mm.
I started moving away from it because I had more to say in a different light. I'm going to be real with you. The Man-Made Lake years were controlled by substance use, alcohol, extreme alcohol, and severe mental health issues. So I ended up after a couple gigs in the mental health ward and just completely losing it on stage.
Oh.
Um, One show, I lost the microphone on stage at the Capitol Ballroom in front of like opening for this band from Nashville called the Bright Light Social Hour, and I was so embarrassed, and I was just, yeah, anyways. So that was not me anymore. And
Okay.
I had a solo project that I'd been working on for a while called Sale Cassidy.
Mhm.
And I decided that it would be a great way to kind of start again, put my focus into being all right with being healthy,
Yeah.
and work on the parts of creating that were good for me rather than destructive.
That's an extremely insightful thing that you said, like being okay with being healthy,
Yeah,
because it speaks it implies, which is true, this romanticism about being unhealthy, and there is that, right? We all have heard the rock star stories, or
oh yeah,
whatever you want to talk about,
yeah,
and it does, if you buy into that for a while, or if you think it's legitimate or whatever, thinking
yeah,
about being sober, you might recognize it as the responsible thing, but you won't recognize it as fun, or as you're feeling like you're leaving the fun room and going into the responsible room. So it's
that's right.
interesting that you've reframed it that way, and I want to
Yeah,
hear more about that if you wouldn't mind
of
touching
course, of
on it.
course.
Yeah.
I'd love to. I think when I was in my older band, Man-Made Lake, some of this is going to be dark, so if this is a trigger warning to anybody,
Sure,
uh,
let's say trigger warning.
let's
Yeah.
say a trigger warning here. I had a bit of a personal suicide pact with myself where I had very much decided that if I ever got famous, I was going to kill myself and do it for everyone that had, because I couldn't pay any of my band members. I couldn't ever really give them anything. At the time, I didn't feel like I could offer them anything. And they were so loyal and they worked so hard that I made this inner quiet pact that I would get, if I ever did get famous and a bunch of money was coming my way, I would kill myself and then leave it to everybody in the band. And that was my like inner plan, kind of. And so I used to romanticize that all the time, and it was such a big part of my self-destruction because, you know everyone loved Kurt Cobain and Amy Winehouse and Lane Staley and all these different artists that we can think of today that unfortunately passed on
Hmm.
that way, not killing, but drugs, alcohol, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was this romanticism that you had said that was so infectious as a child, being raised in the, like, I was obsessed with bands and music even as a child. So
It's
that was
sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's not
it.
just rock and roll, you
That's it.
know?
That's
Yeah.
it. And so I had made that pact with myself, and the I never got famous. Then I did try to kill myself. It didn't work, and I was like, well, okay, here we are. What now? And so I decided that it would be a better idea to start again. And I couldn't do it with the band Man Made Lake anymore because it had this darkness to it that I just couldn't hold on to anymore. And so Sale Cassady just became this sort of like, even when I say the name Sale Cassady, there's like a sunbeam shining
Mm,
through it. When I
mm,
say Man Made Lake, it's almost like looking into the ocean and you can just make it out through the water,
mm,
so in the
mm-hmm.
dark sea. So that's kind of how that transition came. And the way that I look and feel about Sale Cassady is I can now, share my views, my passions, my beliefs very easily, um, through that stuff, like through Sale Cassady, which is nice. It feels good to heal through music. So rare.
That is rare. Although I feel like it's becoming a thing, right, with music therapy and stuff. It's literally becoming a thing, I think. But
Yeah,
I that's it's all very impactful to where you are now, it sounds like,
yeah,
obviously. And I'm curious what your bandmates in Man-Made Lake thought.
yeah.
Obviously, I'm sure if they were even remotely your friends, they were primarily concerned about your well-being, and so
Oh
happy
yeah,
you're still with us,
very.
obviously. But from a band point of view, were they like, you know what, man, we totally understand if you need to move, like leave all this behind.
Right.
So I guess what I'm getting to is, did they ever join you later on with Sale Cassidy, even though I know it's a solo thing? It like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Did they ever
totally.
participate again, or was that a
Oh, yeah.
hard line that you needed to have?
No, it was a very hard line that I didn't have at all. near the end of Man-Made Lake, we had some really awesome shows, like some really powerful shows opening up with some pretty big names, and it was
Mhm.
going really well. And my old drummer at the time, Graham Keane, and like there was a lot of times where my band would break up after shows. Like when I lost the microphone opening for the Bright Light Social Hour, I was hospitalized due to just mania, completely out of control. And the rest of the band had quit. They said, we can't do this anymore. But they did it with like a love and compassion. Like, you know,
Mhm.
Colin's sick. He can't do this right now. So I got cleaned up, and my drummer had a huge opportunity to go play with this other really great local band called Carmana,
Mhm.
and he took it because things weren't, my brain wasn't doing super well at the time.
No, it's
And
fair.
so I saw that and I was like, I get it. I get it. And I kind of saw people sort of move away a little bit for a bit. But then what ended up happening is I am Nathan Bailey and John Flatman and a few other band members, Aaron Blair, who plays bass, they actually stayed with me. So three of the band members stayed with me, stayed by my side, and believed, hey, man, do what you need to do, but good luck. You know, like we're here, like let's keep going. And they gave me the space I needed to kind of get through that harder time. We did a few little other projects together, and then we started up with Sell Cassady fresh.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a really beautiful thing to just show that there was more to the band. It was also like they say like a brotherhood or
Mhm.
family or love, all those things. It was wonderful.
If I may ask, and it's okay if you want me to
Sure.
edit this part out or whatever, but just I'm trying to think about the practicality of losing a microphone on stage. Like I don't know if I understand exactly what you mean. Was it like what
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll tell you the story. And in fact, it's not a long one. Don't
It's
worry. But
okay. And also my next question I
sure,
genuinely is what is your worst gig story? So this might already be the
it
answer, it
is.
sounds like.
It
Okay,
is my
so
work.
yeah.
It works perfectly for
Yeah.
that. So like I told you, they're a really big band. I think they're from Nashville, called the Bright Light Social
Mhm.
Hour.
Mhm.
They're a great band, by the way. And what ended up happening was I hung out with a few of, I don't know if it wasn't the band. Like I hung out with some of them in the green room, but the band wasn't going hard like I was. But I think one of their roadies was, and their
Mm.
manager, they were all drinking and having a good time. And before I went in the green room, had been using cocaine and using other terrible substances. And I kind of stumbled in there. We weren't really supposed to be in there. And I was offered a bunch of beers. I drank, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 8 beers before I was to get on stage on top of the drugs,
Whoa.
a couple shots of whiskey. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to pull a Jim Morrison and like be a bit of a poet. And so I get on stage and we start the first song, and I'm not singing the right lyrics. People knew the songs. It was on the radio, a song called Blood in the Sink. And people knew it, and I was fucking that up. And then it just started getting to a point where I'd lay down on stage and just mumble nothing into the microphone. And then I'd prance around, climb on things, and then I'd whip the microphone around. And eventually, like, I started like I don't even know if this is dancing, but my body kind of got taken over by the drug demon. And I just kind of was like making a fool of myself in front of a very confused.
Oh
Some
man.
people, some people liked it. Like people were egging me on from the crowd because it was a
Yeah.
huge crowd, but it was not a good look. And my band were absolutely humiliated. And I remember Joe, the sound guy at the time at the Capitol Ballroom, realized that I was looking for something, and I could not for the life of me find the microphone because I had whipped it around and thrown it somewhere. And there's so many chords anyways that you can't just follow any chord. I tried to follow a couple chords
Yeah.
leading to one of my poor guy. I almost pulled out the patch cord from one of my guitarist's guitar. In fact, I
Oh.
might have actually pulled. Actually, you know what? I'm pretty sure I almost or I did. So Bob, my guitar player at the time, I was looking for the mic, and I think I yanked out his patch cord, and
Oh.
it was just a disaster. And so they finally sent a guy up with a new microphone, a runner, got me a microphone where for the rest of the time I ended up bumbling more, screwing up the songs. And around the end of the set, I started to kind of realize that it was bad because I didn't
Oh,
even know it was bad. I thought I was so cool at the
I
time.
I was just gonna ask, like,
Yeah,
and this is not a, I'm not being
no.
funny asking this. How do you get into, and I know drugs is the general answer, but how do you get into the mind space of thinking that but being coherent enough to think about what you're doing is good or bad and choosing to mumble into the microphone and thinking that's good? Like, what's the thought process when you think you're in the cool zone doing that?
I, I will keep it short to this answer because I think many people will understand. Have you ever talked to someone on cocaine when you're sober?
Yes.
Okay, I'll leave it there.
Okay,
It's
gotcha.
that you think you're the shit. You think you know what's going on. You think you're fucking Jim Morrison or
Yeah.
whoever, Janis Joplin. And so when you're doing that, you're trying to be, you know, one of your heroes.
Yeah.
And you're in that actual state of mind that they were in.
You
And
think you're being insightful and stream of
yes,
conscious and you've tapped into
yes,
the river.
yep.
Yeah, okay, I
I'm
see.
the Lizard King. I might have even probably yelled that. And so
Oh.
what ended up happening is then when our set was in my mind done, I
Okay,
ran
sorry.
off stage through the crowd and I ran onto the road and I started fighting cars.
Oh.
And then the police were called and my band quit and I ran away into the night and I was eventually found and taken to the mental institute for detox and mental health issues.
So what I've never spoken to any, I've spoken to people who got sober, whatever. Haven't actually spoken to anybody who kind of had this trajectory and then actually went through the recovery process in a treatment center. Is it okay with you? Can I
Yeah,
ask about that? Is that
it
okay?
was only a 20 for that night. It was only a 24-hour one.
Okay. Oh,
So
okay.
it was the police were either going to toss me in jail or I think I don't remember much to be honest. I was
Sure.
told a lot of different things from different people, but I there was some kind of deal made that as long as I get taken to our place here, it's called Eric Martin, that they would take care of me there and get me, taken care of. So that's all I really remember. I actually haven't been to a treatment facility to get
Okay.
sober. I did it on my own. But I will say this, I still will have a couple beers or glasses of wine. I don't use hard drugs any longer at all. I'm done with them and I never
Yeah.
will. I if unless I want to be the Lizard King, but I don't.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Well,
We'll
that's
avoid
that's
that.
so interesting that you also have this self-control to at least introduce that a little bit.
Yeah. It
It
took me
sounds
about
like.
20 years.
Sorry?
It took me probably around 20 years
Oh,
to
wow. Well,
get that out.
that's
Because I'm
probably how
still
long it should take, you know?
Yeah, well, I tried all the time. Like, even during those years, I would try to get sober and it just never worked. I would just be like,
Mm.
I'm done. Like, after that, I said, I'm done. And then, like, literally 2 months later, I'm back to my old acts. So
Oh, man.
it was a bit of a shit show.
Have you really never been approached or told to write a book, or have you ever been like really prompted to write a book? Because you should. You should. You have so many stories.
Thanks. I have not, well, kind of, just like people are like, you should, talk about this and say things. And maybe when yeah, maybe I will one day. And if somebody is interested to hear about, what not to do, to be an artist,
Yeah.
then maybe I will.
I think you should. I think it would interest a lot of people. It would do a bunch of things. Because it would also, one of the things that it would do is help serve as a document of Victoria as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Which I'm always sort of thinking about, even doing this podcast. It's Canadian, but it's Toronto centric, and I like the fact that I'm capturing Toronto artists at a certain point, and now it's wider, obviously, but that would achieve the same thing.
that's
Um,
that's great. Yeah.
but that's wow, so that's really interesting. Okay, so that is fair. That's a good answer for worst gig. That is probably the best one that I've got. Uh, I'm curious. The next question that I usually ask is, what's the best song you think you've put out
Oh,
publicly so that people can listen to it?
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, well, I will say, and I'm not going to try to, I guess I should. My manager's always bugging me to be more self-boastful.
Yes.
I'm really proud of the song I released recently titled Hold Me Down, but
Hmm.
also a month ago I released Finally I. And the reason I'm proud of it isn't so much because I think the songs are like top tenors or anything, but it's more so because they're concept songs. So this is a concept record
Hmm.
about, dealing with issues of, everything from bigotry to, LGBTQ issues, all the way to just general hatred and how to navigate that when everyone feels like you're the only one. It's you against everyone. And so I think for me, it was the most meaningful work I've done.
Mm.
Um, Now, are they my favorite like musical like songs I would listen to at home? Not really, because they're not my genre. Like I love the genre, but it's not normally where I write from. But
What's the genre?
it's so Finally Eyes kind of sounds like an old gospely track, like something
Uh-huh.
like Elvisy kind of. And then Hold Me Down is like a rockabilly sort of indie rock kind of sound, but like I'm trying to be vintage and nostalgic with it
Sure.
and to tell this story. So it was a challenge to fit that in like a paradigm of concept. So for me, it was a challenge and I loved the challenge. And so for me, I'm just proud that I could create something meaningful, hopeful. I've had a lot of just overwhelming feedback on the songs that have helped people feel not so alone and feel like that they're happy that stories are still being written during these times. And it's for everyone. It's not just for one group. It's for everybody who feels fucking hated on by whatever. So um I'm glad it's making a personal impact for people.
Yeah, I like that. I like that answer because and whatever answer I get to this question is good. There's no right answer. But the
Yeah,
reason that I like that is because some people will say, "Oh, they will go the music, literally the musical melody route and go, I really like the way that pieced together." Or other people will say, "I like the way I pulled off a genre I didn't think I could." But in your case, I like the fact that it's more about the concept and more about getting something out, and the different genre or the different subgenre was just kind of
yeah,
incidental, or it was the vehicle kind of.
yeah.
Uh,
Like when you hear like just to throw a little piece into this, like I was watching an interview with the Gallagher brothers from Oasis, and they're about their lyrics for like Champagne Supernova or like Wonderwall, and
hmm.
it's all just gobbledygook. That's what they said. Even Kurt Cobain from Nirvana said a lot of his lyrics were just nothing, meant nothing. They're just gobbledygook.
Hmm.
And yet those songs were like top 10 major hits. And when you ask them today, well, obviously Kurt you can't ask, but when you ask the Gallagher brothers today, they almost don't really care about them because other than the fact they made them millions of dollars, there's no juice. There's no sustenance other than they're amazingly beautiful, cool songs to listen to. But is anyone really listening to the lyrics going, Wonderwall changed my life? Or
Or
like
made me think differently about the world or whatever. Yeah, no, I
that's right.
agree.
Like and I think they'd agree with this. I don't think I don't see Liam looking for me in the streets to beat me up. So it's well, you never know.
You
He'd be
never
okay
know.
with that. You never
If
know with
if
him.
someone was going to,
Yeah,
he would be one of them.
he
Yeah.
would be. Yeah.
That's
So
interesting. No, I think you make a really good point. And I think if I was going to be more generous to those, I would say the good part about having them mean nothing originally
yeah,
is when the listener not who didn't take part in the making of it at all and just
yeah,
experiences it as a final song, it's
yeah,
just like a movie or reading books in between the lines. They put things into it that complete the picture and makes it relatable and makes it about something, even
yeah.
if it's actually not about something. And
That's
I
right.
agree with you. They are not about anything for the most part because I was never more depressed than when I was at like whatever, 12 or 13 or 14, learning that Noel Gallagher was like, I don't know, I fucking wrote those
Yeah,
in 2 seconds. I
yeah,
wanted to rhyme star with car. That was it,
exactly,
or whatever. Yeah.
exactly,
Oh
exactly.
man. Yeah. So
So
I
like
totally get you. So I like the fact that you're proud of the fact that this uh there's it's substantial in
it's
the
got meaning.
song. Yeah.
It's got something for everyone, and just because I don't know if it's my personal favorite on a musical and like that level, even though I think they're great and I love them,
Hmm.
I will definitely say that they're packed full of nutrients for the heart.
Good. Good to everybody's always looking for the next cheat code for health, so
You
that's
know what
good
I
to know.
say? They are the Buddha bowl of songs.
I need a Hello Fresh song.
Yeah, yes, sir.
So then we're at the last question, which
Sure.
is the title of the podcast. What do you think is the worst Sale Cassidy song that we could listen to publicly?
Oh, I love this. Okay. Now I would say, okay, I'm pretty known with Sale Cassidy for being super depressing. Just because like I said, Sale Cassidy was about telling my story and my
It's pretty self-explanatory, I think, after
yes,
listening to the podcast at this point.
yes.
Yeah.
So I would say there's a song that I think it's a great song, but it's a very dark song, and it's sometimes a bit much for people to take. And
Mm,
it's called "Got the Pace," and it's
mm.
on Spotify. It's off of our record we released like back in 2016, I think, or 2015, titled "Silverfish." But "Got the Pace" is a bit of a, let's just put it this way, it's a little bit of a it's very chewy.
Oh, interesting. Chewy.
It's very chewy.
Chewy.
It's like an English toffee of a song.
Ah, okay, okay.
You
And
know?
so the way you're describing that, so I haven't heard that song in particular. The way you're describing it reminds me a little bit of the way that people talk about Frightened Rabbit. Have you heard of
Oh
that?
yes.
Know that
Oh
band?
yes.
And how
Uh,
some of their songs are so like
yeah.
that guy bared his soul in some of those songs, and not just the way he sang them, but the production. Sometimes it would be very
Totally.
stark, so it feels very intimate. So why is it, other than the subject matter,
Well,
does the song style match? Is it it's
yeah.
dour?
It's dour, but the guy I was working with is a musical genius named David Parfit, and he's worked on everything from film to bands to everything. And this guy is out of the world for his mind
Wow,
musical.
okay.
Unbelievable. His name's David Parfit. In my opinion, he's a legend in Victoria, and he was a member of Cell Cassidy back in the early days.
Oh, cool.
He just was so busy. He's such a fucking legend that he's just so busy.
I should have him
Um,
on.
you should,
Yeah.
honestly, if you want to have a conversation that'll blow your mind. Dave is the kindest, sweetest, nicest dude, but
Oh,
also just an absolute genius. So,
okay then. Yeah, I'll get his information from you.
yes,
Okay.
totally.
Okay, cool.
Um,
But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and so he was able to be a conduit for the way I was feeling, and he knew what I was doing, and he just, oh my God, it's almost like the lyrics are dark,
Mm.
and so he was able to take his guitar and the production and match it. And then he had this incredible backup singers and had so much like just incredible artistry come in, like Ren from Foxglove came in and sang backups, and John Flatman I think did too, and
Oh.
Rebecca from R Mason did, and just he was able to almost scare you with their vocals. It's so haunting. It's so dark, and it's just such a. I would say it has a tinge of people like Grizzly Bear. There's
Hmm.
like old Grizzly Bear from that album Yellow House. It has a
Love
bit of
that.
that old ghosty, like the songs are haunted. Like I
Cool.
wouldn't listen to that shit near a Ouija board if I was you. But I'm sure somebody will contact you. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what it is.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's an exciting place to end. So
Totally.
I want to thank you for coming on. Thanks
My
for
pleasure. Thank
bearing
you.
yourself. This was a lot of fun, I thought, and insightful. And the thing we do at the end of the podcast is you just reiterate your name, reiterate the band name, and the
Cool.
worst song name choice.
All right. So my name's Colin Crivero. I'm the lead singer songwriter of Still Cassidy. We just released Hold Me Down and Finally I in the last month. Super stoked on it. And our worst song choice would be Got the Pace. And if you want to feel nice and depressed, go and turn that one on.
Awesome. Thanks.
They got the pace, man. You wanna race them. They wanna talk shit and walk by with beers. cut up my hand and smear blood on pages. I've got the rage and the darkness to boot. Hey, smooth face, our halo's not fitting very well, based on the marks that you left on me. It's not fitting well, based on the sharks that you sent for me. I'm under your spell, la-di-da-di-da, under your spell. I built a garden, invited insects. Now I'm cleaning out the holes in the leaves. You call me honey with wine in the bathtub. Who's gonna clean up the blood in the sheets? Hey, smooth face, a halo's not fitting very well, based on the marks that you left on me. It's not fitting well, based on the sharks that you sent for me. I'm under your spell, la-di-da-di-da, under your spell. Suicide's not always the quickest of death. It's a slow burn deep in your chest. Someone is holding your hand again. Coffee shop therapy, incense and dark. Try drinking wine with a hole in your mouth. They got the pace, man. You wanna race them. They wanna talk shit and walk by with beer. Cut up my hand and smear blood on pages. I've got the rage and the darkness to boot. Hey, smooth face, our halo's not fitting very well, based on the marks that you left on me. It's not fitting well, la-di-da-di-da, based on the sharks that you sent for me. I'm under your spell.